Many of you have been following my holistic health journey with Holistic Goddess and their amazing products. I can't tell you how much it eases my mind to have a brand I can truly rely on. Everything is crafted with care and aligns perfectly with my wellness values. I have to share my latest obsession, castor oil by Queen of the Thrones. I've been learning so much about clean and natural health and the importance of using quality products. This one is a total game changer. What I love about Queen of Thrones castor oil is that it's 100% pure, hexane-free, and extra virgin, all packed in a glass bottle. It's thoroughly sourced and third-party tested, so I know I can trust what I'm putting on my body. The organic golden castor oil is incredibly versatile. I use it to regenerate my skin for a firmer look and reduce the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and crow's feet. It also supports my hair's appearance, helping hair look stronger and adds shine while being deeply hydrating for my scalp. Plus, it works wonders as a natural makeup remover and moisturizer. It truly covers all bases. It even pairs beautifully with the original castor oil pack for full body wellness. If you're looking to elevate your wellness routine like I have, I highly recommend checking out Queen of Thrones Organic Golden Castor Oil on the Holistic Goddess website. It's been a fantastic addition to my self-care, and it might just be what you need too. For more info, visit holisticgoddess.com and discover how castor oil can support your wellness journey today. Use my code UNDERSTOOD for a special discount of 15% off. Welcome back to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. All right, everybody, let's talk about a name and a face that you know, Steve Wilkos. You know this guy. He started off as a Chicago cop and a Marine, but most of us really know him from the days of the Jerry Springer Show. Back in the day, he was handling all the craziness as the head of security. And then, of course, he went on to start the Steve Wilkos Show. Hard to believe it, but he is about to kick off his 18th season, which premieres September 23rd. You have to check it out. I believe that it is the second longest running show in daytime television. That is very impressive. The show is all about giving people a voice, diving into those real, raw situations, from family drama to hard-hitting issues. Steve doesn't hold back. He gets straight to the point, lays it all out, and somehow manages to get people to face their issues head on. I mean, that must be why the show has lasted so many seasons, right? I am so excited to have been able to have the chance to meet him. I met him when I was in New York a couple weeks ago. We sat down in person in my studio to have a heartfelt conversation about how he got into this, why he got into this, his relationship with Jerry Springer, what he's done since, and what he's looking forward to doing in the future. He's a great guy. It was an honor to meet him and become friends with him. So please enjoy my conversation with Steve Wilkos. Steve, thank you so much for joining me on Misunderstood.
Oh, glad I'm here.
So everyone knows you from, the last 18 seasons of being on the show. Everyone's watched it. If they haven't seen it, they saw you originally with Jerry. Yeah. I want to talk to you about how you got into this field, though. I know you did 7 years in the Marine Corps. Is that correct?
6.5 years in the Marines. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went back to Chicago, where I was born and raised, and I became a Chicago police officer, just like my dad. My dad was an Army guy. He was in the Korean War or Korean conflict, and then he became a Chicago policeman and did it for many, many years, and then retired. So growing up, my dad was kind of like my hero, and I wanted to be like my dad, so I did the same thing. I went into the military after high school. I went into Marines, and then I got out. I wanted to be a policeman. I was going to do that for 30 years and then retire, just like my dad.
Right.
So in 1994... I was walking out of the police station at 1 o'clock in the morning. My buddy Mike McDermott, who now runs my security, he had been working for the Springer Show already with Pinkerton Security.
Okay.
So they needed one more guy, and I was walking out, and Mike knew I took a lot of side jobs, and he said, "Hey, do you want to work the Jerry Springer Show?" And I said, "What do I got to do?" And he said, just wear a suit and tie, show up tomorrow. And I did. And it was just one show, and I think it was a Ku Klux Klan show, so they wanted some off-duty cops there. And it was very uneventful. It was kind of a boring show. I don't even remember much of it.
And were you on air for that at the beginning?
We were kind of like standing on the perimeter of the audience, so we weren't on stage or anything like that. And like I said, it was a boring show. There was no fights or anything.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I thought, okay, I made my money. I'll never be back here again. Well, once in a while, the show started shifting in the direction of being like the Phil Donahue show into what it became, the Jerry Springer show. And so they were having more confrontations. And there was a guy that was running it, but he was kind of lazy, and they fired him. He was running security. He was a sheriff. And when they fired him over the phone, I happened to be standing at the desk of this producer. And after they fired him, they looked at me and said, "Hey, do you want to run the security here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to run the security." So it was just kind of like being at the right place at the right time.
Right.
But then, Jerry came up to me one day. I was sitting we had a big office, like the bullpen where all the cubicles were. And Jerry came up and he goes, "Hey, I see you here all the time, and blah, blah, blah." I started talking. Well, we're both big baseball nuts. Jerry was a big baseball nut. I was a big baseball nut. And so we started talking. We got to know each other. So then when the show became huge and popular, Jerry was like, "Hey, I got to do a lot of traveling, publicity. I don't want to do it alone. Would you mind traveling with me?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And so we became very close. And then my role kept expanding on the show because I'd always have to run up on stage, and I was on stage a lot. So people got to start to figure out who I was.
Right.
So what really changed, though, was when we were in 1997, we were down doing Springer Break from Daytona Beach. We're doing spring break shows. And the exec producer at the time said, "Hey, would you shave your head?" He goes, "I'm going to make you a star." And
No way.
I was like, "Come on, man. Like, who you bullshitting?"
Right.
But I said, yeah. I mean, I was in the Marines. I always wore my hair short anyways. It wasn't like I was a hippie or anything. And so I went and I shaved my head. And sure enough, man, like my popularity, I don't know if there was a lot of white bald guys back then, So my popularity did explode. And then I really became part of the show. I used to do these things called Steve's Corner at the end of the show, or I'd walk with the guests at the end of the show. And then we started taping segments called Steve to the Rescue, where I went to people's homes all around the country and I would help them out of like goofy situations and stuff. And so I just became like the second banana on the Springer show.
So, all right, hold on. You were a police officer in the late 80s, early 90s.
I got on in 1990, and I left the Chicago Police Department in 2001.
Oh, okay. So you were doing both. You were still working in the police.
I was doing both.
And what was that like? Were you ever recognized?
All the time. Because the Springer show was like in 97.
Probably the same audience that you're targeting on the street.
You got to remember, everybody watched the Springer show in the late 90s.
Right.
So I was very famous. I was more famous on the Springer show than even having my own show. Right?
Really?
It was crazy. Plus, TV was different then. There was only
a handful.
There wasn't social media and Instagram, and TikTok, and everything. So when you were famous in the late 90s, you were really famous, right? And so I'd be a cop, and I would show up at people's houses when they called the police, and they'd be like, "Steve, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "You called the police, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, but what are you doing here?" I'm like, I'm a policeman.
Oh, they couldn't put it together.
Yeah,
they thought they were like on the show.
And I'm like, no, I'm a Chicago policeman. So, yeah, it was kind of weird.
Okay, so what made you finally decide to make that a full-time gig?
So, I met my wife on the Springer show, and she came from Detroit, started as an AP, and was working her way up, and we started dating in '97. We got married in 2000, and she didn't understand that as a policeman, you had to use force to effect arrest, right? She didn't believe that people fought the police. And I worked in a very rough area of Chicago. So I'll never forget, I came home, I was covered in blood. My uniform was just splattered. Not my blood, but you're fighting people and got blood all over me. She goes, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" And I said, "You do realize we have to use force on people to, people fight the police." She didn't understand that. She thought that everybody was, "Oh, okay, officer, here's," So one time I came home, and so after that incident, I came home, and this guy tried to choke me out. I had bruises all around my neck. And she goes, "You're quitting that job." She goes, "Listen," she goes, "when the Springer Show goes away, we're not going to live on your policeman's salary." Mm-hmm. She goes, "I'm a TV producer. We're going to LA or New York, and you'll find something to do, and, that'll be it." And at this point, I was a little burnt out from being a policeman, because people hate the police. I mean, it's just a fact of life. I should put it this way. People that have a lot of interactions with the police hate the police because usually they're on the wrong end of it, right? They're doing something wrong. So I said, "Yeah, you're right." And I was making good money on the Springer Show. And my dad was really mad at me because, he was like, "Oh, you only got 8 more years for a pension." And he didn't really have an idea what I was making. I was making like 5 times what I was making as a policeman on the show. So I did quit. And this was in 2001. 6 years later, I got my own show. But in 2001, I had no idea I was going to get my own show. We had no idea the Springer Show, because you don't know how long TV shows are going to last.
Sure, yeah.
And from 2001, the Springer Show lasted until 2018. So it was a really long run. But it was the right move for me at the time. And it did open doors for me and then end up getting my own TV show.
I can imagine that having the past that you have so much discipline. And I feel like the topics that you're covering on first the Jerry Springer and then yours were not things that had people that didn't have a lot of discipline. Like, was that a different thing to get used to, that the kind of people you were interacting with obviously weren't people that were your friends, but it's a different lifestyle?
Right. But the guys I grew up with, I grew up in a regular neighborhood in Chicago, kind of a little rough area back in the 60s and 70s. But the guys I hung out with all became something, right? Like, not to the level of me, but they all became cops or firemen and have a certain level of success and really good guys. Because my dad made sure that I didn't hang around bums or guys that were bad influence. My dad would have kicked my ass. So I was used to being around guys that were disciplined. Then being in the military, very disciplined. And then being a cop, you have to have discipline. So when I'm dealing with people that obviously have no discipline, and then being on a Springer Show, you're like, how do people live like this?
Right.
And even my show. But I've dealt with people like that my whole life.
Right.
So I'm really used to it. I hate it when people say, "What trailer park do you find?" "Oh, they're trailer trash." The advantage I have in life, and all these times we live in, and you have white privilege, or you have this. No, what I had was a father and a mother that were very involved in my life.
Right.
And we lived in a building that my grandmother owned. So not only did I have my mother and father, I had grandparents. And, I don't want to be the angry old man that shakes his fist, but when I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, man, if I didn't listen to my neighbors, they would kick my ass, right? It wasn't just my mother and father I had to worry about. I had to worry about my grandparents. So it was about respect. Respect. You weren't going to be a bum. You weren't going to be a guy that caused trouble. Like, my dad was a cop, and, you weren't going to be a bad guy in a neighborhood. It just, that's not going to happen. So, I just, now I'm dealing with people that have no respect for anybody. And dealing with
no discipline. And it's interesting because, in watching your show, you definitely come across as having empathy for these people and trying to give a lesson. Right. And
I'm saying that's why I'm fortunate.
Yeah.
These people probably didn't have 2 parents in their house.
Yeah.
And education. Like, listen, I'm not the most educated guy. I barely graduated high school. But I knew I had to graduate high school and get that high school diploma.
Right.
So, but when it comes down to in life, I had a mother and a father in my life to make sure that I didn't get off the beaten path or start doing drugs or start doing all kind of crazy stuff. A lot of people are not that fortunate to have that home life that I had.
Right.
So do I feel where I was able to get ahead in life and know what was important and work hard? I feel like now, especially in my position, I'll do lives with TikTok and this and that, and it seems like everybody wants a handout. Nobody wants to work.
Right.
Like, just gimme. And it's like, and people are like, "Oh, you're lucky Jerry gave you a show." I go, "Jerry didn't give me anything. Like, I love Jerry, but Jerry didn't give me the show. NBC gave me a show because I busted my ass and I became very popular on the Jerry Springer Show." Nobody, they think that I was walking on the street, somebody said, "Hey, let's give that guy a TV show."
Right.
I busted, I hustled all the time. And even if I didn't get a TV show, even if I never worked on a Jerry Springer show, I was going to get ahead of most people simply by outworking most people.
Right.
By working all the time, by not being foolish with my money. And I tell my kids all the time, if you're willing to grind in this day and age and work hard, you don't even have to be the smartest or most intelligent person in the room, because nobody wants to work hard anymore.
I know, it's crazy.
Everybody's triggered. Everybody's soft. All this stuff. So,
right.
I mean, if
people are living with their parents until they're in their 30s.
If you're tough and you can grind, you're going to get ahead in this world.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, running a business can be challenging, especially when it comes to managing sales and making sure everything runs smoothly. That's where Shopify has made all the difference for me. For our misunderstood merch, Shopify has been a game changer. Before, we struggled with keeping track of orders and making the buying business seamless for our fans. But now everything's in one place. The checkout process? Super smooth, just like we want it to be for our audience. With Shopify, I don't have to worry about technical headaches, whether it's selling directly from our website or across social media. It's all connected. The best part, it's the same checkout system we use ourselves. Trust me, it's easy, reliable, and our fans love it too. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/understood in all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/understood to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/understood.
What was the transition to getting your own show? Was Jerry's show already off the air?
No. So like I said, when I got my show was in 2007. Jerry didn't go off there until 2018. So, but how I got my big break was Jerry went on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh my God, I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
how did he do?
So that's funny how you say that, because they said Jerry was going on Dancing with the Stars, and they came to me and said, "You're going to host the show while he's gone."
Got it.
He's terrible. He's going to get voted off week one. You just have to do 6 shows, because back then we did 6 shows a week. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, what are you going to pay me? And they didn't want to pay me anything. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it then. But so they eventually gave me more money. But anyways, Jerry was on Dance with Star for like 7 weeks.
Oh my God.
He did great. People loved him. Not that he was a good dancer, but
no, but they loved
Jerry.
Yeah.
So he didn't get voted off for like 7 weeks. Well, during that time, I kept hosting the show. And those shows.
And at the time, you guys were in Chicago,
yes.
And he had to go to LA. Is that
he
so? He wasn't even there. Okay.
No, he wasn't even there. So the shows I did rated really well. So now Jerry gets in his mind the next season, well, I'm going to take Monday off. You host, Steve.
Oh, wow.
And so he got.
So he wasn't threatened.
And he was getting paid. No, listen, that's the great thing about Jerry. Jerry didn't have the ego. Jerry didn't worry about me. He didn't feel threatened. Like people say, oh, you're bigger than Jerry. That's bullshit. I hate when people say that. Jerry was the biggest star in the world. He was a great guy, but he never felt threatened by me. Nor should he be.
Right.
But so he would come in and be like, okay, Steve, I'm going to take Monday off. You host the shows. Well, I'd get paid extra for hosting the shows. So it was great for me. It was good for him. And so we did another season of doing that. Well, then I got a call in January of 2007, or maybe it was 2006, late 2006. And they said, hey, this is so-and-so from NBC. We're giving you a show. And my kids were babies at the time, and my wife was sleeping. It was like 10:30 at night. I was watching All in the Family, having a little vodka tonic. And I walked upstairs to tell my wife, I just got a call. I got my own TV show. My wife's still a producer on The Springer Show at this time. And I said, I got my own TV show. And she goes, are you drunk? And I said, no, man. Well, maybe, but somebody did call me. Yeah. So, and then then the realization of, okay, Did
you have to pick one over the other then? You couldn't do both? Like you couldn't stay on Jerry?
No. I mean, no, I couldn't do both. I'm going to be the host of my own show.
Yeah.
And, but then it was the realization of, oh my God, now we got to figure out what we're going to do. It's a show. Like, what kind of show am I going to do?
Right.
And we knew we couldn't do a continuation or some kind of knockoff of the Springer Show. And my wife, really, who's one of the best producers in TV, she said, listen, what are you good at? You're a cop, and you were a good cop. She goes, we're going to take you from the cop, from the streets of Chicago, and just put you on stage, and that's what we're going to do. And
wow.
It works.
Okay, so go back to when you had to host for what you thought was going to be 1 week. Did they prepare you?
No, there was no preparation.
How did that
It was
go?
like, okay, so I was terrified, and I remember sweating like a pig because I was nervous. And like, here I've been on the show for, at that point, I was on the show for like 9 years, but I was nervous because the focus was never on me.
Right.
And so I hosted, and I was terrible. But then, like anything, you get in a groove and you start doing a show, and then it was fine. But then when I got my own show, the terror started all over again.
Right.
Because now it's the Steve Wilkos Show.
Right.
But you get used to it like anything. And
you get better
I've
with
never
time.
been a shy person. I've always been in front of crowds my whole life. So it was kind of a natural transition. And I got...
Yeah. So when you first started working with Jerry and really got into the show, can you talk about some stories that really stand out to you, or some episodes that really stand out to you that either you loved doing or that were like terrifying and you thought it was something you guys shouldn't have aired?
Well, the one shows I always hated when I started was the food shows, like the Thanksgiving, you have two families and they start throwing all the food around,
Right.
start fighting, and then you'd go up on the stage and there was like all this, mashed potatoes and gravy on the, and you'd start slipping and falling, and your clothes would get embedded and stinky, and so I never liked those. So when I became more famous or whatever, my role on show, I hired more guys underneath me, so I always had them do all the dirty work, and then I kind of stayed out of that. But so there was one show in particular I don't remember exactly what it was about, but Jerry was going to do Ringmaster, his movie. It was like a take on the Springer Show. And he said there was a scene where he had to take his shirt off, and I think it was Jamie Presley was in the movie, and he was like, that was his love interest or whatever.
Okay.
So he goes, Steve, he goes, you got to help me work out and lift some weights. He goes, my chest is terrible. And I said, yeah, okay. So we're planning on going to start working out. Well, we start taping the Springer Show, and two girls were fighting. And all I remember is I bent down to grab the one girl, and my groin tore. My groin snapped in half.
Oh, my God.
And I never had that happen before. So I honestly thought.
Wait, you mean your pants or you mean your actual...
My actual groin.
Wow.
And yeah, not my pants. I wish it was my pants. I actually thought somebody shot me.
Oh,
that's how
God.
painful it was. It was just like something getting shot. And I just went down face first on the stage. And I was confused, and I was in extreme pain. And I crawled off the back of the stage, off the stage into the backstage. Mm-hmm. I started throwing up.
No way.
And I was laying on my back, and I'm just
Wait, meanwhile, is the show still going on?
The show's still going on.
Oh,
And,
my God.
we always had enough security, so now they're breaking up, and people didn't even know what happened to me. So I crawl off stage, I'm laying there, and I'm sweating, and I got throw up on me. And Jerry comes backstage, he just looks at me and goes, "Are we still working out tomorrow?" I'm like, "You fucking asshole. I'm dying here." So that was one of them. But, it's funny, the evolution of the show, because nobody expected the show was going to have a lot of fights, right? So the stage was like just a regular stage, and then it had steps to go down. Mm-hmm. And on the bottom steps was concrete. So when we started having fights, sometimes we'd fall off that stage.
Yeah.
And one time I remember I banged my jaw, and I almost knocked myself out on the concrete. So eventually, then they put padding back there on the concrete. But then the strippers and everybody that was walking out, their heels would get stuck in the padding. And they looked like baby deer walking out on stage. So then they had to get rid of that. So then they put the stage, it went all the way to the back walls and everything. So we had to do things because nobody knew that these fights were going to be happening all the time.
So was there anything, I think people always are like, oh, that can't be real. These people are talking about things that are just so ridiculous. Did anything feel staged?
Well, there was stuff that was certainly exaggerated and more for entertainment. When the midget was dating the hot stripper, those obviously were not real.
But it was because they called up and made up something
I
to
think
get
some
on
of
a
the
show?
producers made up those type of stories.
Got it. Okay.
But when we had the love triangles and those hillbillies were just whipping ass, Those are real stories.
Oh my
that
God.
guy was sleeping with that dude's wife, and there's no shortage of that in
No,
America.
of course not.
So,
But how would you guys find? I mean, I remember the days of was it Jenny Jones? And at the end of the program, she'd say, if you had sex with someone, but it was their mother, and all these crazy things that you
well,
had.
we would do that too.
You did. Okay, so that's
And
how
so
you found
people
your-
would call in, and then, but
These are all people that want to be on TV.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, would we go on TV show and talk about?
Probably not.
Probably not. But like, guests would come on from someplace in Kentucky or Indiana or Ohio. And then we'd say, hey, do you got anybody else that, and sure enough, like people from small towns who've never been on a plane, never spent the night in a hotel, they come to the Chicago and we put them up in a nice hotel and they fly them in and we're picking them up in limousines and we're treating them like they're the star.
Sure, yeah.
It's a big draw.
Yeah, of course. What are some things, I mean, I know that you've said that Jerry was a huge influence in your life besides your father. What are some things that we wouldn't know just from watching the TV that made him stand out to you?
Well, I always say, I was telling Frank from Barstool Sports there when we were talking earlier, I knew Jerry for almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around a lot of celebrities. I've been on other TV shows, many different things. Jerry never yelled at anybody in 30 years of knowing the man.
Oh,
He
wow.
never acted like a diva, never acted like he was a star. If you were a young producer working for him and we went out to dinner, he made sure you ordered first. He'd open the door for you. People would, he's the star, so everybody rushes. Oh, Jerry, what do you want? He's like, well, ask her first, like what, she needs something. So he was the most well-mannered man I ever met in my life. One of the most educated man, the most generous, caring. People I don't know how they ever got the conception like Jerry was this crazy guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watch the show, you never get that impression that
No.
Jerry was like a lunatic or anything. But he was just honestly, like I said, my father obviously had a very vested interest in my well-being and caring for me. And other than my father, it was Jerry. When I got my show, he was there for me to lean on, to everything's going to be okay. Because I was nervous, what happens if my show gets canceled, blah, blah, blah. And, when my kids were born and when I got married, I mean, guy was just unbelievably generous. I got in some trouble a few years ago with the DUI and he was there for me. And just every step of the way, I mean, the guy loved me as I loved him.
Yeah. Did he ever give you advice on your show, especially as the years went on?
He just gave me advice as far as because when I was trying to figure out what we were going to do, he just said, Steve, he goes, everybody loves you. He goes, you're a very charismatic guy. He goes, just be yourself. He goes, you go out there, you be who you are. And he goes, people are going to love you. He goes, they already love you.
Yeah.
There's not much to do here.
Oh, that's great. When he died, were you expecting that?
No. So about a month before he passed, he called me up and he said, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm going out with all the guys that worked on his show, that were working on my show and stuff. I'm going to, because he used to go out every Monday night with his crew to dinner. He would take them out to dinner. And he said, I'm coming to town. And a lot of the guys that he was taking to dinner work on my show. So he said, I want to go to dinner. Why don't you come to dinner with us? Well, I was taping that day, and I said, Jerry, you know how it is. I go, I'm taping all day. I'm tired. I just want to go home. Mm-hmm. And he goes, Steve, I really would love to see you. And I said, I thought that was a little odd. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'll tell you what, Jerry, you go to dinner. I go, when I get done taping, I'm going to go home. I'm going to rest a little bit. You tell me when you're done, and I'll meet you for a cigar. Because we're both big cigar smokers. Mm-hmm. He said, okay. So he got done dinner with, 20, 30 guys. He took the dinner. And so he goes, okay, I'll meet you at the place in Stanford. Cigar put John Starks from the Knicks. He owns a cigar bar. So we went to his place and we were having cigars. And it was and I said this, it was funny because me and Jerry were never guys that talked about the glory days or, oh, remember this, remember that. We never did that. My son is a big athlete and played baseball, football, this, and then he's got a grandson that he absolutely adored. I think a year younger than my son. So we would always talk about our kids because his grandson was a big athlete too. So we'd talk about our boys. He was a Yankees fan, I was a Cubs fan. We would talk politics. He's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, all this. And we would just talk about things like that. Never about the past. But this night, we're sitting there smoking. We were laughing about the old days. Do you remember this? Do you remember that? And it was really different, and we were having a great time. But I noticed he was shaking really bad. And I said, Jerry, you all right? He goes, I got, he was trying to explain something. I got a little something pressed on some nerves, whatever. It's nothing. I said, okay. So when we're getting ready to leave, he got really emotional, and he said, he goes, I love you, Steve. And I said, yeah, I love you too, Jerry. Not thinking anything, Mm-hmm. But I think he knew, like, this last time he was ever going to see me, because he knew he had pancreatic cancer, but he didn't divulge that to me.
He didn't tell you, I see.
So he was very emotional, and I thought he was being very melancholy because he wasn't on TV anymore. And Jerry loved being on TV. So I thought he was just being sad because of that. He didn't have his TV career anymore. I felt bad for him, but little did I know he was actually dying. And then he passed away. My wife came home from somewhere. I was home, and she said, Jerry died. And I was like, I was shocked but not surprised.
Right.
Because Jerry was always a healthy guy. He didn't drink. He didn't do drugs or anything like that. And I thought he'd live to be 100, So he was 79 when he passed. And, so I was surprised, but I wasn't shocked.
How soon after you last saw him did he pass away?
About a month, yeah.
Wow. I'm really sorry for your loss. Okay, so let's move on to your show for a second. So you cover a lot of very interesting topics. I was looking at the titles of some of them.
The titles.
Some of them are, the standard, the cheaters and the this and that.
Yeah, which I love doing.
I'm sure.
Because it's easy.
Yeah.
And nobody's, when we...
Nobody gets hurt.
But then when we
do
the child molestation and stuff,
yeah.
I feel like I'm a cop again. I got to investigate this. And it is emotionally wearing, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I was going to ask, because some of those titles are very, they're triggering for a lot of people. So when you're dealing with first of all, how do you guys come up with those topics? Because those are going to be ones you have to spend more time on.
Again, my wife is my executive producer. Mm-hmm. She calls all the shots on what shows we're going to do and but again,
do those do well in the ratings?
Unfortunately, the ones that everybody wants to see, those do the best. And what's shocking is when we were in Chicago, I used to greet all the fans that came to the show. Yeah. After the show, I would shake everybody's hand because that's what Jerry would do, so I did it too. Mm-hmm. And people would just half the audience would come up and be like, I was molested. And even when I meet people in today, and I'm like, it's shocking to me how many people have been sexually assaulted as children in this country. And I think that's why those stories are so popular, because I think a lot of people relate to them.
Right. Absolutely. It's terrible.
Yeah.
How many times do you think that you have done a show where it's resulted in an arrest?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but it's happened quite a few times.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't give you an exact number.
And is that because you guys have done enough research that you get the evidence, or it's because they are dumb enough
It's not that we're looking to prosecute people, because we're not. We're a TV show.
No.
But because of the things that people have admitted on stage.
That's what I'm saying. They admit it. Okay.
That we've had law enforcement agencies subpoena us for our records. And listen, they don't even have to subpoena us. We'll gladly cooperate. Mm-hmm. But I think because of legal reasons, we have to wait till we get subpoenaed.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because of what they've either admitted, failed lie detector tests, a lot of it's been used in court and people have been prosecuted. Because
of your instincts as a cop, sometimes are you on air and you didn't even realize, this is going to be a problem now, the stuff that I'm hearing? I mean, are you pretty ready for anything you hear and know what's coming?
I mean, listen, even after all these years and after being a policeman and the Springer show and my show, people say, are you ever surprised anymore? And I say, oh, no, I'm not. But you are. There's always something that comes down the pike. You're like, okay, we never have done this before.
Is there one that stands out to you that you were most shocked in?
Well, one that was very shocking was we had this a mother and daughter on our show, and the mother thought that the daughter was poisoning her. And the daughter was this very beautiful young girl who looked sweet, angelic looking, and talking, like she was just a sweet girl. And the mother's like, that bitch is poisoning me, you know? Like, I know she's poisoning me. Well, we gave the girl a lie detector test, and she failed.
No way.
She had been pouring bleach, small amounts of bleach, into her mother's orange juice. And the mother went crazy, and she picked up, there was like, you know, I do my show. I don't like look around the stage, but I guess for years there was a chest on the back of my stage with a metal bowl. And she ran over and saw the metal bowl, and she picked it up. She went to throw it at her daughter, and she cracked me right in my eye with the bowl. I thought, like, again, shot again on my stage. I went down like a ton of bricks. And then everyone's like, "Ooh, you're going to jail, you're going to jail." And, you know, and I was like, I couldn't believe my head didn't split open.
Oh, my gosh.
And then my mother, that's a Freudian slip. My wife came running over. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I go, "I'm fine." We finished the show. And it's funny, I was in my green room, and the lawyers came in. They're like, "Don't worry, we're going to cut all that out." I go, "You better not cut that out." And I go, "In fact, you should send that woman a dozen roses," because I go, I know this is going to be the highest rated show ever. And it was.
And it was.
It was the highest rated
and
show
what
ever.
happened to the daughter? Did she go to jail?
No, because she was a juvenile. I think she was like 16 at the time. And that's a great question, and we need to update that show.
Do you do updates?
Yeah,
do you
we
bring
do
people
updates.
on?
We definitely try. You know, the bigger, more shocking stories we've done, people always want to know what happened.
Right.
So we have stories that we've updated, but I don't think we've ever done. Oh, I think the reason why we haven't updated that one, we've been in contact with the mother, but we can't get a hold of the daughter.
Oh, okay.
And that's why we haven't updated
And
that
she
one.
doesn't speak to the daughter.
And she probably, and the daughter probably doesn't want to speak to
Right,
us.
obviously.
Because we exposed her.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm curious about the criticism that both the Jerry Springer Show and yours has gotten.
Listen, and you know what's crazy? I can understand the criticism of the Springer Show. I really can, because, you know, people acting like crazy, the
Right.
nudity and all that. But if you watch my show, and if you ever read my fan mail, we've helped a lot of people. I get so many messages every day of my life, either on TikTok, Instagram, emails, saying, "Steve, watch your show. I got an abusive relationship. You led me to leave my husband because he was beating my ass. I stopped doing drugs because of you. I spoke up against somebody who was sexually abusing me for years." And I'm like, I never thought in a million years that's where the show was going to head and that's what it was going to do. But I'm proud of the fact that we've helped a lot of people get out of bad situations.
Right.
That weren't even on the show, that just watch my show. It helped them.
Right. I'm curious. So Jerry Springer helped you sort of create the path for your career. Is there someone that you see that path with that you work with now?
I wish. We just don't. I don't, only because, first of all, would I love to take shows off and still get paid? Like, would Jerry? Damn right I would.
Would you go on Dancing with the Stars?
Probably not.
Have you ever asked to?
No, I've never asked, and they've never asked me. If they did ask me, I mean, like anything, I consider all things, but I don't think I'd want to do it.
Are you a good dancer?
I got 2 bad knees. I can barely walk decently.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, I would love to have that opportunity. One, and you know, to be quite honest, Jerry made money off my show, and if I spun somebody off, I would make money off that show.
Right.
But the truth is, TV's dying.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer, you know, these formats, this industry is going to last with like daytime talk. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel just came out and said, you know, nighttime talk that's going to be dead in a few years. And,
Right.
And who knows if daytime TV is still going to be around.
I was going to ask you about the evolution of what you've seen from when you started to now and where you see it going.
Well, think about this, and how I was saying in the 90s, if you were famous, you were really famous.
Yeah.
Everybody's famous now, right? Social media influencers, everybody's famous. But back in the 90s, you really had to be on something to be really famous.
Yes.
There wasn't TikTok, Instagram, all this stuff. There wasn't social media. Cable was just starting to form. There wasn't streaming services. Mm-hmm. So if you were on ABC, CBS, NBC, you know, you had a show, even if it wasn't a good show, you probably were going to be famous because people watched.
Right.
And, you know, when you were on a hit show and you were doing, you know, 10, 20 million viewers a day, you know, you're lucky if you get 1 million viewers a day nowadays. Yeah. So, you know, everything has just completely changed. And here's a perfect example. I have a 21-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son. I don't think either one of them watches a TV. I mean, they watch their phones and they watch TikTok and everything else. They don't watch TV. Like, I sit home and I'll watch TV.
Right.
My kids don't watch TV, and I think all kids are like that. Nobody watches TV.
But you don't see it running out for lack of storylines or lack of things that you could have on.
Hell no.
Okay.
That'll last forever till the sun burns out.
Right. So, okay, season 18 coming up. First of all, it's 5 days a week?
Yeah, our show is 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Yeah.
An hour format?
Yeah, our format.
Okay. And so how do you tape everything in advance or as the season?
We tape 6 months on, 6 months off, basically. So we just went back the last week in August. We didn't tape last week because of Labor Day, but I go back taping tomorrow. We tape Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We try to tape 12 stories a week.
Oh,
My
wow.
show, we don't tape shows, we tape stories. And then my wife puts them together and makes a show. Mm-hmm. So we try to get anywhere from 10 to 12 stories a week. And then we'll tape now until the first week in March.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm sure people are actually curious about the actual details of that. You go in. Is that the first time you're seeing what you're taping that day?
I
Are
have
you
no idea.
preparing at night?
No, I don't prepare at all. Just like when you're a policeman, you don't prepare, right? Like you're sitting in a squad car and, beat 1443, go to 1234 West Division Street, speak to Mrs. Smith. And so you I go to Miss Smith. Hey, Miss Smith, what's happening?
Right.
Okay, this is okay. You take a little notes. Okay, and you got a certain amount of time to solve this.
Sure.
Well, same thing with TV show. Like you got 42 minutes, right? And my wife, like she'll come into my green room. She'll give me my blue cards, with the people's names, ages on it, and there's like basic questions on there. But I don't even look at the cards.
Right.
Because
you're just letting it unfold.
I've been, ever since I've been a policeman, I know how to interview people.
Right, of course.
I know what I need. I know where I need to go. Now, if I'm not getting there, my wife will pound on the podium. Get there.
Right.
Like she'll redirect me, you know. But for the most part, she knows I'm going to get to where she wants me to go.
And is it in front of a live studio
Yes.
audience every time?
Every time.
And do they ever have to stop the show and
We never stop filming.
you never stop filming?
Because if it's bad or if it has to be taken out, they do that.
They'll do it
But
later.
we never stop taping.
Okay. What are some of the things we can expect, some of the topics in season 18?
Well, I know we did a lot. The first week, we did a lot of family members stealing from each other, and we gave everybody lie detector tests. It felt
my
like we
God.
did a lot of that in the first week. But we did some sexual assault. Listen, everybody, when you launch a new season, like season 18, everybody says, oh, what can we expect this season? Well, it's been on for 18 years. You can expect the same old shit because
Right.
your core audience, they tune in to expect a certain type of show.
Same old shit, but different storyline
Right.
each time. Yeah. which
Because,
makes it
like, if you
interesting.
start changing things, you're going to lose your core audience.
Sure.
And our core audience wants people getting justice, finding out the truth. That's what they want to see, and that's what we deliver. And again, like when I say the most popular shows are the ones, unfortunately, would deal with molestation, sexual assault, things of that nature. I like doing cheating stories because they're just so easy to do.
Right.
And they're not so serious. And
Right.
I actually, because I'm a wise ass in my real life, I bust balls, I make fun, and I can do that with a cheating story. You can't do that with a
No, of
sexual
course.
assault story. So,
Explain lie detector tests to people.
well, I can only explain that we give them, and I think they're accurate. But the people that we use are like highly trained in it. I think they're very accurate. I don't know the whole science behind it. Like when we had Dan's, he left the show. He's kind of like in semi-retirement. He was fantastic. And, I would always ask him like, how they work. And he would explain it. And basically what it is like when you are telling me the truth about something, you can go into your brain and it's like a replay of what happened.
Sure.
When you're telling a lie, you have to formulate, and when you're formulating, your brain waves have a different than if you're recalling something that you actually know is the truth. So that's how they tell. Now, just to give you an example, So when I started doing my show, like anybody else, I'm a little skeptical how accurate these are, right?
Yeah.
So we had this one story on where a guy had a good friend, a woman, and his wife thought that her husband was sleeping with the friend. He swears he wasn't. His girlfriend, who's a friend, says, no, we're not sleeping together. We are just friends. So they both take the lie detector test. They both fail for sleeping with each other. They swear, oh, this is bullshit. This is a lie. Your lie detector tests are wrong. And they were so adamant about it. I was like,
you got nervous.
Maybe,
Yeah.
So after the show, I told the producer, bring the dude in here, right, into my green room, which I've never done. They bring the guy in, I go, hey, man, between you and me, were you sleeping with her? He goes, oh, yeah, man. He's like, yeah.
Did you get that on camera?
No.
Oh.
No,
So
but
could you not air it?
No, we aired it.
Or you aired it even
We
though you
aired it, yeah. So they cry all you want, man. We get those releases, and we're airing it no matter how much you bitch and cry about it. But so there it goes to show me, like, I think they're very accurate.
Right.
Because this guy, oh, no, I swear, it's a lie. And then my girl was like, oh, yeah, man, I've been sleeping with her for years.
That is hysterical.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever flipped the script on you and had you be part of the show and brought in a long-lost relative or, I don't know, anything
oh, God,
crazy?
I'd probably kill somebody if they did that. No.
There's an idea for your
Well,
life.
here's the thing. Like, people say, well, why don't you take a lot of time? I said, because I choose not to.
Right.
And we don't force anybody to come on my show. We don't, and listen, unfortunately, as you know, when you're a public figure, our lives are open to the public.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got DUI.
It's harder to hide
And
things.
guess what? I was on TMZ and all over the place, and it was
Right.
embarrassing. I embarrassed my parents. I embarrassed my wife, my children.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to go through when you screw up, when you're
Right.
a public figure. So it's tough. But would I ever go on another talk show? Hell no. No. I like, my personal life is my I never understood celebrities. They're coming on. They're talking about what I do sexually with my wife or my husband.
Right.
I would be appalled to talk about what me and my wife do.
Right. Well, because there are certain things that are just for you guys, of course.
Why does the public need to know? I share a lot about my life with my kids, their schooling. We talk, me and my wife, we talk about our relationship, how we met, what we like to do, things like that. But I'm not going to get graphic or, really private details about my personal life.
Right. What are some things, since you have been doing all this for the 30 years, I guess, and being famous, that have been things that you really loved? I know you've gone on different talk shows. Like you were on Wendy Williams, right?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like? I mean, obviously, did you see the documentary about her right away?
Yeah, I watched that. It saddened me greatly because, when you do these interviews you go on shows, you're not developing a personal relationship with people. But I did develop kind of a personal relationship with Wendy. We got invited to her 50th birthday party. Me and Wendy are just a few months apart in age, and I would talk to Wendy, and Wendy always treated me really nice, and so I had a personal relationship with her. And I don't watch daytime talk, but I would flip through and I'd watch her show, and I really enjoyed her show.
Yeah.
So it really saddened me to what happened with her, and then I hate it that people are like, she's a bitch, and she's got karma come back to her. What, because you might talk on a TV show and you criticize somebody, you should get karma and that your health would deteriorate so terribly and people are stealing from you financially and ruining you? Come on, people, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So it saddens me. But, doing things like that, through the course of these 30 years, I've done things that I never would have been if I just was a cop. I went to the Kentucky Derby with Jerry. I get to go to the Super Bowl every year when NBC has it. I've traveled just about, all over the world. I am a big sports fan, and I got to meet all my childhood heroes because of the show. And so I've got to experience many, even moving. I never would have moved away from Chicago. Now I live in Connecticut, and I have a group of friends that are, I'm not going to lie, that are very wealthy, and I get to go to clubs and golf courses that I never would have played if all this didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And now my son gets to benefit that. when I go to a ball game, we get to go on the field. He gets to meet the players. He's a big Buffalo Bills fan. You get to meet Josh Allen, met Jim Kelly, the Buffalo Bills. Like, if I'm Steve the cop, none of that happens.
Right. You were telling me earlier you like to play golf every day. What are some of your future aspirations once season 18 is over?
I'm really simple. Like, someday when my show's over, like I said, all I do is I work out and I golf. That's basically all I do. I'm a pretty boring guy. Like, most people think, like, because I'm on TV and he has money, that I live this crazy lifestyle. I wake up, I golf every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, come home, take a little nap, I work out, and then me and my wife watch TV. And we're empty nesters now. My kids are away in college.
Right.
So we're pretty boring, but, now we have a place in Florida we're very excited about. I have a Wisconsin lake house that I absolutely love going to. It's just a little shack on a lake, but it brings me a lot of peace and a lot of beautiful memories of my kids being small kids there.
That's nice.
But there's nothing, I'm more looking to participate in my children's lives than really expecting much more out of my own.
Right.
Like, I want to see where my kids' lives go.
Are they married, or do you want grandchildren?
No, they're both in college.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So are you looking forward to grandkids?
Yeah, I miss those as much as I love my kids. When they're real little, those are the best years.
Yeah.
Because, you can tell them anything. You're fooling around with them. They believe everything you say. And, and then you realize that you're pulling their leg and the excitement on their face. Like, when they still believe in Santa. Like,
right.
Those are special years. And I really am looking forward to that with grandkids, to do that again.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
You said you and your wife sit and watch TV at night. What are some of the favorite things you watch?
We're watching The Perfect Couple right now.
Oh, I watched
Netflix.
it. I watched the whole thing,
Yeah.
all 6 episodes. It was so good.
We burned through 3 last night. We just finished Gangs of London, really violent. So, we watch a lot of stuff like that. But there's a lot of crap. We'll start watching stuff like that Vince Vaughn thing that was on Apple TV, Bad Monkey, or I don't know what it was, but it was terrible. We try to, get on to things, and it's nice when you find a series that maybe aired 5 years ago and then you can binge watch it.
Yeah,
those are like the greatest.
Sure.
But we don't really watch anything like network TV or no reality or nothing.
And no
like that.
talk shows.
Come on. My wife, she ran 2 for a long time, Springer and my show, and and I'm doing it. People we went to see Saturday Night Live one time, in person. Yeah. I said, I'll never do that ever again. It's like, I'm at work,
right?
And I'm like, why would I do this? Like, this is terrible. So, yeah, I have no interest in that.
How do you want to be remembered by your audience in the broader landscape of?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I don't care.
Do you really not care?
I don't care.
Why?
I don't care what other people think of me. I've always said my mission in life is to go through life being a good person. And I think I've achieved that. I've been a good son, a good grandson, a good husband, good father, good brother. And if that doesn't speak enough about who I am, then I don't care. I've never gone on my way to screw anybody over. I've never hurt anybody. I've always been, if you're a neighbor of mine, you love me because I'm never going to bother you or play loud music or get on your ass about anything. So, and like I said, I have a great family. I've been good to everybody in my family, and everybody's been good to me. I got no complaints. Mm-hmm. So I don't care what people think about me. Like, people say, oh, his show. Like, people say, oh, his show's just like the Jerry Springer Show. And I go, well, then you've never seen my show.
Right.
You have no idea. And people say, oh, you exploit people to come on our show. I go, we're not asking people to come on the show. We don't force people to come on. People want to come on the show. And I would guess, except the people that really felt miserably for being exposed for terrible things they did, most people have a really positive experience coming on the show.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like you want to be remembered for doing the right thing and being a good guy.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah. But again,
you don't give a shit.
I don't I care what my mother thinks about me.
Right.
I care what my wife thinks about me.
And your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, again, I would never do anything to hurt you or, screw anybody over. I'm not trying to be a con man. Like, I'm a pretty open and honest person. Unfortunately, that gets me in trouble because I don't want to bullshit anybody. And sometimes when I tell them the truth, it hurts.
Right.
But
I'm just curious, actually, because we have an election coming up, and you were somebody that worked in Chicago in the police department and in the military. What are your thoughts about this political arena we're in?
Terrible. What my biggest concern is whoever the next president is going to be, are they going to be tough enough? You know, you see where Iran now is shipping weapons to Russia, and what's going on with Israel, and things going on our own college campuses where people are, you know, anti-Semite, and, Semitic. And it scares me that there's so much hate. But I think countries view us as being weak, and they're starting to do things that, attacking Israel, shipping to Iran. Iran's always testing the limits with everybody. And that scares me because I served in the Marines, and my dad served in the Army, but, I wouldn't want to send my son off to a war.
Right.
And I don't think anybody wants to do that, send their sons and daughters off to a war. So I hope that whoever gets in will be really strong in dealing with these situations around the world and say, you're not going to mess around with us.
Yeah, it is scary. And it's scary to think of, I have a 12-year-old daughter, what she's kind of growing up, kind of world she's going to have in her kids,
when 9/11 happened, me and my wife had just got married. We were married like a year. Mm-hmm. And that day with 9/11, which is 2 days or 1 day, I said, do we really want to bring kids in the world? Like that event, like almost made me not want to have kids because I was scared to bring kids in the world.
Yeah.
I think people nowadays starting families must be thinking the same thing.
They must be. Yeah. It is very interesting. It's been, 24 years now?
Yeah, 23.
23 years. And the thing is like, until something like that happens again, it's almost like people do forget, except for the ones that really went through it.
And history repeats itself, right?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. But it does seem like there's a lot more divisiveness. Everybody within our country seems to be hating each other, and that makes it even worse.
It's crazy. If you say you're voting for X and you're friends with somebody, they might say, I don't want to be your friend anymore because you're voting for X. Which to me
I'm a New Yorker who moved to Florida, and imagine it was just, I see people, it's MAGA where I live. I live in Palm Beach where Trump lives, and if you even question the slightest thing, you get pushed out, or there's fights that
I say all the time, Jerry was a Democrat. I'm a Republican. Mm-hmm. We'd have discussions all the time.
Right.
Never heated.
Right.
Never, I don't like you, Jerry, anymore. Or I don't like you, Steve, anymore. We were two adults having conversations.
Well, people don't listen anymore. That, I think, is the problem. Because
why does everybody have to, if you say you're for somebody and they go, well, you're an idiot, then why? We all have to think the same? Right. We can't have differing opinions?
Yeah.
To me, that's insanity.
Yeah, and people, I think, forget that everyone comes up with their own experience, their own reason for having their thoughts. And it's like we were talking about at the beginning of the interview about respect. There's not a lot of people that have a lot of respect anymore. It's a shame. It really is.
And just for having a different
opinion.
Viewpoint.
Yeah.
And why do we use such divisive terms to begin with, right?
Yeah.
It just be your time. It was funny. I was watching an old debate between Romney and Obama, and they were so civil to each other, even joking with each other. Those days are gone, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, it is really sad. I had Rudy Giuliani on my show, and my mother stopped speaking to me, which is crazy.
Which is insanity.
It's my own mother.
Yes.
And I only had him on to talk about 9/11 because we share that experience together. I wanted to hear his experience versus mine. And it was so triggering to her that we haven't spoken.
My wife told me that one of her friends stopped talking to her mother because her mother was going to vote for Trump. And the daughter will now have nothing to do with her mother.
Right.
I can't, we talk about how craziness between Springer and my show. To me, there's nothing crazier. My mother could kill somebody, and I'm, that's my mother.
Yeah.
I love my mother. I'm never going to not talk to my mother.
Right.
I don't care if she says she's voting for Putin. You know what I mean? Like, I love my mother, and I'm going to,
Right.
Okay, Mom, you're crazy, but I still love you.
Right, exactly. Oh, my gosh. All right, so tell people where they can watch the Steve Wilkos
So the show's
show.
syndicated. It's all over the country, but like in New York here, we're on PIX, Chicago CIU. So you just got to go to stevewilkos.com, check the local listings on it.
It starts September 23rd, yeah?
That's the season premiere, season 18.
5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Always at different hours in different cities?
Well,
or?
different, like, I know, like, in New York, we come on at noon.
Okay.
In Chicago, we come at 10 a.m. So everywhere's different.
Is there some show that you are up against and that's your biggest competitor? Or you are...
You know what? I used to know that, and I used to care. I don't care anymore.
Okay. But, I mean, in terms of 1 hour talk shows like yours...
Yeah, but, like, so I don't even know who's around anymore.
Yeah, I can't even...
Like, everybody was like, a couple
You're not
years
up
ago, it
against
was
like Kelly Clarkson and those people.
No, because we're owned by the same company.
Okay.
But I might air, because she's on NBC and I'm on syndication, so I might go up against her. But like a couple years ago, like Rachel Ray and Dr. Phil and everybody left. Ellen left. So like who's left? There's Drew Barrymore, there's Kelly Clarkson, there's Sherry Shepherd, Tamron Hall. There's not a lot left.
No, and yours seems different than theirs.
And of traditional talk shows, I'm the longest running.
Right.
So I'm the king.
You are the king. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.